Good evening. Now today we're going to talk about how to get more out of life by Rupert Croft Cook, and we're also going to mention another book that he also refers to, Professor Saintberry's Notes on a Cellar Book. What we've got here are two books immediately after World War I, which might seem a little odd, but nonetheless, if you've read Dorothy Sayers' books featuring Lord Peter Wimsey and his pursuit of Harriet Vane, you will hear a bunch of wines and modes of living and habits of thought and so on. And it's really quite apt. Dorothy Sayers captured the mood of the age rather well, although it's not one that I particularly esteem. But then, hardly expect me to think that. They're talking very thoughtfully about the 1870s, for example. I've never been anywhere near those years, so of course not. Strictly a post-World War II baby. So hey, I do remember the 60s, the 1960s, just barely. Anyway, yes, well, the point is, you've got Mr. George Saintberry with his cellar book, discussing various wines, of course. And then you have Rupert Cook with his suggestions on how to get more out of life. And then you have the practical manifestations when they write about Lord Peter Wimsey and how he behaved and traveled and did his. And this is rather what I tend to do. I read books on certain subjects and get a fairly good background knowledge. For example, Banned in Boston, I talked about Bibles and Brahmins and what they believed. Well, let's tie another knot in our stream of knowledge here, because all of this talk about ethos, well, the ones that the Puritan fathers of Boston, all those Brahmins, were talking about, and where they even got the word from, it was from Britain, with the Indians from the continent of Asia, of course, where they do had Brahmins, the real ones. But the ethos of those Puritan fathers was mirrored on the perfect ideal of the 18th, 17th, hundreds view of the perfect English gentleman. And that's the sort of man they wanted at Harvard. And in this book here, How to Get More Out of Life, after 1917, of course, that, yes, we're all supposed to be brothers, but that's not quite what you think it means, because really, They go blazing around in their sports cars, your sons. If you've been through the war and you've been roughing after them. And they see your people that you bring home as friends, and really, it's not what not the sort of fellas a chap wants in his car. Meaning that your son wouldn't stop to say hi. We saw you with your brothers in arms, standing on the side of the road, because pretentiousness. Now, talking about how a person deals with the fact that they are them and how to keep an individuality going, your sense as an individual, while not being entirely divorced from the age in which you live. For some people, it's more difficult than others. Let's put it that way. And then we're talking about a more spacious age. Because believe it or not, this fellow, Rupert Croft Cook, and perhaps George Sainsbury's, for a bit, are complaining about the fact that they have vacuum cleaners and gramophones and telephones and wireless, airplanes flying overhead, and petrol engines everywhere, on boats, on the roads, so you can have to scuttle for safety from one side to the other. And it's just too much. I could just see them really getting a kick out of computers. Oh, Lord. But it's interesting how glamorous our past stages seem. Whereas, frankly, wearing a crinoline is probably a big pain in the butt. You always have to remember that, sure, back in your memory, in your time of life, or these golden images of the golden days, when you got up close and really took a look. Or how about that big, deep whiff? You all talk about flu from 1918. Well, what about tuberculosis, which wiped out more? They're talking about drinking port. Well, many of those little freshman kids there at Oxford and Cambridge didn't make it to graduate because of tuberculosis, the White Death. That's why people went to Arizona in the first place. Because that dry air is supposed to be good for you. That's why they started going to the Swiss Alps. The air is so dry. It's supposed to be good for you with your bad lungs. And after World War I, and the gas, darling mustard gas, not so good. This is why when they talk about, the GOP, yes, we must get back to the decorum. Oh, really? With your latest little exploits, you think anyone's going to take you seriously? Really? Don't think so. I sincerely doubt that you're really a real Christian, the way that these people are behaving. Honestly. ban this, ban that. Oh my God. Clutch your pearls a little harder, dear. You might find out they're fake. Anyway, back to the book. I think the funniest thing, and there's a great deal of amusement here, in its very Britishness. It can be very busy. The author would have us mend our lives by using a few new recipes and keeping a peacock. Right here, page 9. Really? Tut tut. Anyway, he's explaining why he's in this. Why he's writing this book. I want to suggest something. I want to try to give them a few ideas which might make their lives less dreary. And I don't never know quite what to say. If they speak of some agonizing tragedy overshadowing them, it isn't much good proposing that they should take up tennis. Well, I have to agree with them there. I am reduced, in fact, to shaking my head, murmuring tut-tut, with great solicitude, and greater, though secret, wonder and impatience. Well, this book is my answer to them. Just a few things, which you might want to try. Such as achieving balance in your life. And isn't that the modern parlance? Yes, balance in your life. But then he goes on to talk about drinks. A little sherry, perhaps. How about a very, very fine port? Food. And indeed, he also includes a few words on keeping peacocks. For which, of course, you need a room, large room, at least a couple of acres, and a tree or two that they might find congenial. But they don't really need a house to prevent the foxes from getting them, because they are rather large birds, and they can fly. But you want to keep them out of your neighbor's vegetable garden, or your own for that matter, because they are hell on wheels for vegetable gardens. He talks about decorating your room, and he's complaining about the gramophone and the wireless, which is what they used to call radio. Now we have streaming services, computers, AI, artificial intelligence. So you can get a kick out of these things, because it's like, my God, if you only knew what was coming. And then you pick up another murder mystery book, hot off the press, the latest thing, and you open it up, and Agatha Christie wrote the same storyline, or Charles Dickens, Wilkie Collins. Is there really anything new under the sun? I don't think so. But you dot it all together, and it makes having all of this not to mention this as well, it forms part of the ethos of your own life. And yes, you end up having more fun than you thought possible. It's just a couple of cardboard pasteboards here on the outside. As you can see, even back in '38, when this book was published, somebody was reading it. That's their name, and December 1938. That is me. Of course, you're only allowed to put your name in it after you've read it. Once. I hope this helps. Gives you a reason to check out some of the books you haven't mentioned and you haven't heard before, and that you will rarely see in anyone's list on anything. But Rupert Croft Cook does have some very good ideas about how to get more out of life while keeping his tongue firmly in his cheek. Another beach read, I would think. That is, if you don't mind laughing at the beach. So, I hope this helps. Thank you for watching, and please do come again.